Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Midnight Mutants for the Atari 7800, brought to us by Radioactive Software. When the last games released for the Atari 7800, Midnight Mutants was a departure from most other 7800 games, which happened to be mainly arcade ports. The game was not featured on any other console, and because of that, it's definitely one of the more unique titles for the system. And no, you're not seeing things. That is Grandpa Munster on the front cover of the game. Well, at least a likeness of Al Lewis, the actor who played Grandpa Munster, as he actually is in the game as your grandpa. In the game, he plays a young kid named Jimmy Harkman who is trying to rescue his grandpa, who has been trapped inside of a pumpkin by the evil Dr. Evil. No, not that Dr. Evil. Instead, another Dr. Evil who was burned alive at the stake, which you can see in the beginning cutscene of the game back in the 1700s. Basically, the Harkman relatives were the ones who burned him, and now he returns in order to seek revenge. The game is actually an isometric view. It has lots of different areas to explore and a bunch of different items to collect. In this round of the game, I'm going to be collecting all the weapons of the game and a bunch of the other power-ups and such. I won't be collecting and showing every single room in the game, but I will explain most of the game as we go through. After pressing start at the main menu of the game, we jump right into the gameplay. You'll see at the top of the screen there is a giant gray box, and throughout it gives you actually hints on what to do in the game. Sometimes it also gives you some random other dialogue, and sometimes it's pretty humorous. When we start off the game, our first goal is to run up this giant pathway in order to get inside the mansion. Once inside, we're going to be heading over to the left side, to a room in the left corner, and grab the knife, the first weapon of the game. Now, you don't have to do this first, but without it, you're not going to have any weapon to defend yourself. Once you have the weapon, you can use it an unlimited amount of times to throw at enemies. Of course, the more powerful the weapon, the easier it will defeat all the enemies. Though the bat enemies, the most common enemy in the game, are defeated with a single hit no matter what weapon. At the bottom of the screen is our blood purity percentage, as well as our health meter. The game actually features technically two health meters. If either the health bar or the blood purity reaches 0%, it's a game over. Now you can resurrect if you beg your grandpa enough, but it's not the easiest, and you also lose a lot of your upgrades when doing so. After grabbing a knife, we come down to the church and grab ourselves the cross. Now this is technically also like a weapon, and if you equip it, you won't be able to have a throwing weapon, but bats in the game won't do you any harm, and this is definitely a plus for some areas of the game, especially early on. Back at the start of the game, you'll notice that there's actually a heart sitting in a square of water. You won't be able to get that right now, but we will be coming back and getting it later. After grabbing the cross and knife, we're heading south along this path, and eventually we'll come to a shoreline area. Travel along the very top of the trees. Yes, there's going to be a lot of spiders running around. The spiders take multiple hits, but thankfully don't damage us too much, so we're just going to run through them. Throughout the game, you'll find flashing diamonds. You saw one down below just a second ago, but that's one we won't be collecting. But anytime you get a diamond, it increases your overall health bar, so they're very useful, and there's a lot of them in the game. This woods area, we're going to make our way up to this path, and then we're going to be heading over to the left side here in order to get to the cabin. Anytime you bring up the menu, you'll get advice from your grandpa, as well as be able to change your inventory, including your weapons, and use either potion. The brown potions being for blood purity, while the blue potions are for your health bar. Over to the left here, there's a well right outside the cabin. You can come back at any time and use the well, and it refills your health meter. Inside the cabin itself is an axe, as well as an entrance to the dark cave, though we won't be going into the cave yet. We'll instead be entering the cave from the mansion. Once we have the axe, go over to the right and enter this area. Enter the weird hole and you'll pop out of another area. Be sure to grab the diamond to increase your health, and then you'll be along this path. You have to walk over to the left and go in between the bushes at the exact right spot or you won't be able to enter. On this screen, grab yourself another one of the diamonds and then go over to the right and enter the door. Here you'll be fighting the first boss of the game. Before battling any boss in the game, Grandpa gives actually a pretty cool explanation of each of the bosses. There's some pretty gruesome stories here. Once inside the area, immediately start throwing your axes because wild dogs will try to take you down. Be sure to grab the potion right before the boss door, then enter the boss. And our first boss is a giant mutant ram head. The only way to hurt it is by hitting the center horn on top of the skull. Though I kinda think it does kinda look like a curled up pile of poo. Either way, you have to defend yourself from all the flying projectiles coming out of the eye sockets of the giant mutant goat skull. I have to say, the 3 bosses in this game are some of the more interesting ones I've seen in an 8-bit title. When you're throwing the axes upwards, every so often, a piece of the health meter of his will drop down. You can see it's represented by the little symbols below the words Mutant Ram Power. Be careful of your health, and if you do get low on health at any point, you of course can use the potion that we picked up right before entering the room. The game's very generous in giving you a potion outside each of the 3 boss doors. The bosses are also quite lengthy, as you'll have to take a while in order to drain their health. Even with the best weapon in the game, the final 2 bosses are definitely tough and they take a lot of hits. Once he's been defeated, you'll see this really cool animation of all the graphics kind of like going all glitchy and stuff before eventually being teleported out of the boss room. Once back outside, be careful of the wild dogs and then head back north to this path. You'll have to head back over to the left in order to go through the bushes at the right spot again in order to make it back to the main path. Now instead of heading back north into the woods, instead keep going all the way over to the right. You'll notice that you're back at our starting point, and our next goal is to go up to the house. Travel north once again a few different screens, and eventually you'll make it back to the mansion itself. The left path over to, well, the left on that main path will actually lead you to a weird area where there is 2 diamonds, but there's no other items to collect, so we won't be traveling there in this run. Once inside the mansion again, head north just a little bit, then right and down the staircase in order to enter this door, and you'll get another story from Grandpa. Once inside of the evil laboratory, you'll have to take out these giant monsters. You have to destroy a certain number of them in order for the item that we came to get to appear. Also be very careful because there's tons of electricity running through all the things in this room that you have to go in between. Walking into them, of course, will damage you at least just a little bit. I didn't really count how many monsters that you have to defeat in order for the item to appear, but this will be a common theme as a lot of items have to appear by defeating a certain number of enemies in a particular room, or actually all the enemies in a particular room. Thankfully, they give you a nice little sound effect to signify that the item has actually appeared. Once the item does appear, grab it, and now we have the blaster, which replaces any weapon that we currently had. So the axe replaces the knife, and the blaster replaces the axe. And now the monsters in the same room are now defeated with a single shot. Before we're able to continue, we have to get the lantern item, which I accidentally forgot to grab while I was out in the other areas. Before doing so though, we're going to grab the key in order to get inside the crypt. Head back to this main room and then head all the way over to the left to go up the staircase. Now, besides the one room that has the crypt key, all the other rooms here are optional. A lot of them contain diamonds to increase your health, some other ones contain potions in case you need them, and finally there's an empty room. The only room I'm going to be entering though during this part is the room over to the left here that contains the key. Defeat the monster inside the room and grab the key that allows us to open up the crypt a little bit later on. Once back out here, even this hallway, if you defeat enough enemies, will make a diamond appear to increase your overall health if you want it. With the key now in our possession, we're going to be heading south and exiting out of the mansion in order to explore another area of the outside. Head south from the mansion and get back to the starting position, and once you're back there, you want to head over to the right area. All the way right is where we enter the church, but instead we want to go up this first path. Go up a couple of screens, watching out for the bats. If you need to, you can equip the cross if you're going to take too much damage or you're low on health for some reason. Here you're going to enter the pumpkin patch. Now this is actually where the game ends, but of course we can't end the game yet. Head south one screen, then immediately back north, and when you do so, the lantern will appear. Kinda weird how that works. Then head north again, you should pop out of the actual entrance from where you first came into the pumpkin patch. So then head south, and you'll be back in the forest where we were, and you can get back to the main path. Yeah, I know. Really convoluted, really weird, but it does work. Once you're back on that main path, now that we have the lantern, we can explore the caverns. So what you want to do is head back into the mansion and head down into the lab. Now there's multiple different ways, like I said, to enter the caverns. It has a few different entrances, but this is the one that I'm going to be taking in order to get inside. Once you're back into the lab, just work your way to the left, in between all the electrical things, and thankfully you can take out all the monsters with a single blast. When you get back to where you actually picked up that small blaster, we're going to head south into the cave. Down inside the cave, you have these really tough, giant, headless green guys that throw pumpkins at you. These are some of the toughest enemies that we've had to deal with so far. Once in here, you want to head south past many screens. Following the path that I am taking, you'll eventually come to a dead end with a lot of the green guys in a single room. Take out all these guys. If you're lucky, sometimes 3 will spawn instead of 4. Now these guys will deal a lot of damage. That's why we definitely want to have a potion before coming into this area. You also want to keep an eye on your blood purity so that doesn't go down to 0%, or of course you'll die that way. Thankfully we have a potion of each. Once you defeat, though, all of these green guys, you get the most powerful weapon that we're going to be getting in the game, and that is the Mega Blaster. This powerful blaster does a lot more damage, and it fires a lot quicker. You can actually hold in the attack button if you want to keep firing rapidly, and they can get a lot of shots out. Once you have that gun, you want to head up a couple of screens. Once you make it to this screen, we're going to head over to the right, and we're going to be heading towards the necklace. The necklace is the item we need in order to walk on the water to get that heart at the center part of the beginning. Head over to the right here and then north, and you'll enter inside a couple of rooms of blue caves. Now there's a bunch more of these green guys here, so have your blaster ready, walk through them, or make sure that you also have that potion ready at all times in case you get ganged up on. These guys, like I said, do a lot of damage. Eventually you'll come to an opening and an entrance to a cave. Go inside, and on the next screen you'll have a very small walkway with a lot of enemies, so just get the blaster out and keep firing until they're all defeated. The next screen, more guys, and an opening to a haunted, sunken ship. Inside of here, walk over to the right, past some spiders, and you'll find the necklace on the ground. Once you grab the necklace, you want to make sure that you avoid the ghost at all costs. If you run into any of the ghosts, they actually lower your total health meter. Not taking away health, they literally lower its total amount that you can actually have. So that's why the diamonds are actually a big plus in the game. You can get your health meter really huge in the game by collecting all the diamonds. However, the ghosts that do appear in just a couple of spots in the game can actually drain that health bar all the way back down. Once you have the necklace, we're going to escape out of the cave altogether. First, we're going to start off by, of course, going through a couple of the blue rooms with a couple of the guys. Thankfully, starting at the top of the room, working our way down, you have a much easier chance of taking out all these giant green guys. Once back into the cave itself, I headed left and head north. Now on this screen, I head back over to the left and north one more time. The problem is, I end up keep going north, and instead I should actually go over to the right once I get back to this screen, and then go up into the lab. Instead, I take kind of a long way around, and go all the way north, around the top portion, and then come back down. This screen has a lot of enemies on it, and it does have one of those blood purification potions, but that really isn't a benefit to us anymore. Once we have the necklace in our possession, as well as we're going to be getting the heart, we can't lose our blood purification anymore, no matter what. Once we're finally back inside the laboratory, kill all these guys one last time, as thankfully this is the last time we have to visit this room. Now that we're out of the laboratory and now the cave, we're heading to the next boss battle. So what we're going to do is exit out of the mansion altogether and head to the crypt. We had gotten the key earlier, but we need to take care of the cave first and get the weapon that we currently have. Now I think you may be able to defeat the next boss with the small blaster, but I don't think you can have anything less than that. When you make it back to the center part, equip the necklace and then grab the heart. The heart, like I said, will allow you to never lose blood purification ever again, even when you take damage. Now you'll of course still lose your health when you take damage from enemies. There's no way to get an item to prevent that. That would just end up putting you in the god mode, and the game doesn't quite give you that much power. Where you want to go is south of the church entrance. Be careful while here in the graveyard itself, because there are ghosts flying around. Like I said, they will drain your total health. Equip the key, and then enter the door, and you'll get a little bit more story from Grandpa before going inside the crypt. Once inside the crypt, you want to watch out for flying ghosts that are going to be coming right towards you, as well as a few of the pumpkinhead guys. To the left of this giant hole is a potion. Be sure to pick it up in case you've used your potion earlier on in the game. Once you have that, go back to the hole and actually enter inside of it, and now it's time for boss number 2. Boss 2 is a giant skull that throws eyeballs at you. Once again, kind of trippy, kind of cool at the same time. What you have to do is shoot directly into the eye sockets of the creature in order to do damage. And with the Mega Blaster being able to do a lot of damage and a lot of shots fast, you can do a good amount here. What you have to do is still move up and down in order to avoid all those eyeballs. Thankfully, we have a lot of health, but if we get too low, of course, use the potions that we have gathered. After depleting all the health, you get that awesome animation of the skull breaking up and going all pixelated before exiting back outside into the graveyard. Now, all we really have to do is work our way towards the final boss of the game. We're going to exit out of here and head over to the left past where we first, of course, started the game. You've seen that square a lot of times by now. Where we want to go is actually heading all the way left past this area. Now, we were here earlier and we headed south to go into that area below, but we're not going to be going there this time. Instead, we're going to be going all the way left and go down past this path. Next screen, just keep heading south, ignore the entrance over to the right, and then go left at the end and you'll cross a giant bridge. There will be a bat or two that appears on this bridge, but they don't do any damage to us anymore. On the next screen, there's a lot of these guys. Just destroy a whole bunch of them. Eventually, you will hear that chime, signifying that an item has dropped. The only item that is here is a diamond, and like I said, I wasn't collecting a lot of the diamonds in the game, but I figured I'd show off this little area and grab the diamond over here. Now that I have that diamond and a little bit more health, and we pretty much have everything we're going to gather in the main area before we head to that boss area. Now, the boss of the game is actually located inside of the forest. Now, we were there earlier, that's where the cabin was located, where we got the giant axe. So we're going to be working our way back towards that area. After that crystal, we're going up here and then head back into the forest, where we had actually exited it from earlier in the game. Go through that weird, mysterious opening, and you'll pop out into the forest itself again. To the left is where that cabin was. Instead, we're going to be going all the way to the right here. First, stopping by going up here, destroy these two guys, and you end up getting one of the health potions. There's a few other paths here, but the ones I don't take are either unimportant or have nothing in them. Keep going over to the right a little bit, enter the second one on this screen, then keep heading north. Here, you'll just find a crystal laying on the ground. Grab that diamond for some more health, and now we have pretty much the most amount of health we're going to get in the game. Though trust me, there's a bunch of other diamonds you can collect if you need more health. But with this and a potion, I should have plenty of health to defeat the boss. Then head all the way over to the right until you reach the end, then head north. You're going to walk through a few screens of forest before coming into a giant skull maze. Now, we want to try to conserve some of our health as we're nearing the boss, and there's a bunch of these guys here. These are the toughest enemies in the game. They do a lot of damage, and they take a lot of hits to get rid of. And, thankfully, their pumpkins they do throw, while they don't really damage us too much, they also don't get rid of our blood purification, since we have the items to negate that. Here, on this room with the giant skull, you have to defeat all the enemies in the room. Once again, I think you can actually get 3 to spawn instead of 4, but it's kind of luck of the draw, so just take out all 4 of them. Of course, the game does have some slowdown here and there throughout, as you guys have noticed, once there's a lot of guys on screen. You defeat all 4 of them, the opening in the top part of the skull disappears, and you can go in here. Now, this is definitely the weirdest room in the whole game. The second to last room of the entire game is unfinished. I mean, it seriously looks like the programmers just didn't finish the room. There's a green path that we have to take to get around in order to go into the weird PA entrance, which I assume was just kind of a placeholder for a passage of some kind. And they just never implemented it into the game. And from everything I have seen, this is the same in every copy of the game. I recommend destroying all 4 of the monsters though before trying to work your way around the path, since, of course, you're going to lose a lot of health trying to get past these guys. Once you're finally able to kill them all, work your way around, once again grabbing the little potion that's available right before the passageway, then enter the passageway and it's boss time. The final boss of the game, well, is the evil, sinister Dr. Evil. This is definitely the strangest of the boss battles. He's a giant head and body moving back and forth. But you can't hit him directly in the face. Instead, you have to hit him in the ears. But not just any ear, only the ear that's currently spewing enemies from it. All kinds of weird bugs, insects will be flying out of his ears, starting with one ear and then going over to the other after a few of the insects end up flying out. When he switches shooting out them, that's when you have to switch hitting him, going from ear to ear. Definitely one of the strangest boss battles, I think, in video game history. And this guy has a ton of health. It takes a lot of shots in order to take him out. There isn't too much strategy. I try to do my best to avoid as many of the hits as I can, but when there's so many enemies on screen and the game has somewhat questionable hit detection at times, it can be difficult to actually dodge in and out of all these things. So instead, I just hit when I can and heal up when necessary. If you find yourself, of course, running out of too much health and using up your potions, you may have to collect a little bit more of the diamonds. And like I said, the mansion with some of those extra rooms are the best places in order to find some more diamonds that we didn't collect. Once I get him past halfway of his health, I finally need to heal up, refilling my health meter all the way back to full, and I should have plenty of health now in order to defeat him. After killing this guy though, the game isn't over yet. Instead, we still have to go back to the pumpkin patch and actually find the grandpa. The thing about it is though, your health does fully replenish after defeating the boss, which is of course a huge plus. It would be a heck of a thing to finally beat the final boss, and then die on your way to actually getting to that pumpkin patch. Once the final hits have been rendered, you get the awesome effect just like with all the other bosses as he becomes a complete scrambled mess of 8-bit graphics, and then we are teleported outside back into the room that led to the passage. Once we're back outside here, I just work my way around. I have plenty of health, I can still get potions, I still have them. I just have to make my way through, so I can take some damage here and there. I also got an increase in my health meter for defeating the final boss. Now remember earlier on in the game, we did actually travel to the spot that we have to go to now, which was where the lantern was located. So, we head south, we finally get through the area, walk through the forest for a couple of screens, and once back out into the main portion of the forest, I'm just going to keep heading south a little bit. Once I make it here, I'm going to head all the way left, and then head south once again. Once outside of the forest itself, we're back out to that cliff area that we had entered the forest the first time around. Walk all the way left, you can avoid the spiders if you want, but they're going to do very little damage to us at this point in the game. Once here, we head north. Keep heading up north up the path, and eventually you'll make it to that center part one last time. Once you're here, we want to head over to the right, and head up the first path you see. Once inside the pumpkin patch, head over to the left a little bit, then south, find this lone pumpkin in the middle of this circle, equip the flashing pumpkin, then use it on the pumpkin, and you've completed the game. The screen goes all glitchy, and then your grandpa appears. He says awesome, you get a copyright at the top, and that's it. The game is now complete. Definitely a little bit disappointing of an ending, and even though the game keeps score, there's no high score input screen anywhere in the game, so you can't even get a chance to enter your initials for completing the game. Midnight Mutants is one of the most interesting of the Atari 7800 games I've had the pleasure of playing. I definitely feel the game could have done well had it actually been released on maybe the Nintendo Entertainment System. Kind of a shame also that the developers of the game, Radioactive Software, this was the only game that they developed. But with that's going to wrap up this edition of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoy.